So let's take a look at date formats here. And, you know, I'm just pausing here for a second, so that way anybody in the chat window, because there's a little bit of a delay between us broadcasting and the chat window, but I just sort of want to put this out here to the chat window. So what date does 12/5/2014 represent? Or, you know, I could have even done something even better, is I could have done something like 12/6/9. Or maybe, you know, put zeros in front of that. So 12 whack 06 whack 09. What date does that represent?
So we have a vote here for 5th of February 2014.
Okay, so we have 5th of February. What else do we have?
That's the only vote in so far. We'll see if we get another one coming in. I can tell you, this is one of those interesting ones, though, because see, I went to a school that I was taught in French, and I was always taught it goes day, month, year. So 2 would be second.
Yep.
5 would be your month, January, February, March, April, May. So for me, that would be 2nd of May 2014. So, and now here we go, we've got some coming in now saying, that's funny, somebody else miscounted the months like I've done on occasion, but we have 2nd of May 2014 and 5th of February 2014. Yep. And therein lies the problem.
Exactly. Yeah, that depending on where you are, depending on the culture that you're working in, this could represent who knows what, and especially if we got rid of, you know, and I'm really going to kind of circle that example right there, that I'm keeping every number 12 or under, and I'm using 2-digit, I could make the argument that that's going to be June 9th. I could make the argument that that's December 6th. I could make... I mean,
you know what? And nobody's wrong.
Exactly.
So it's important for us to be able to have a little more control over how we show dates to users.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is really the biggest issue when we're talking about dates is it's not just simply okay, now we've got something other than a string. It really is, how do we take the input and how do we display that back out? So what if we want to change the way in which we display everything?
Right. So but we could specify the actual name of the month rather than the number for the month. Because if I say 2nd Feb, then it makes it pretty clear that's the month of February.
Right. Yeah. And that's honestly, I mean, in my own personal life, that's why I always spell it out. That I will always go day, month, year, but I will always put the 3-letter abbreviation for the month.
Yeah.
Just make it nice and clear. Let's just eliminate ambiguity, you know?
Absolutely.
So, but in any event, so what happens if we want to change the way that we display everything out? Because again, different countries are going to be doing different formats, and a lot of times that default isn't what you need. And on top of that, even if I might be thinking, well, the culture is set for US English. I know that my user is expecting US English. So I might be thinking, well, I'm just going to rely on the default output from Visual Studio. Let's you know, just fire this back up again. There we go. You're going to notice, you're going to notice that I opened the wrong window. You're going to notice right up there that it's giving me year, month, day, which not everybody is necessarily going to be expecting.
Yeah, and again, people can mix up, is it year, month, day, or year, day, month? So it's not clear.
Exactly. Okay, so let's kind of go back to the slide and talk about all that. Let me, where's my slide? There's my slide. Okay, so here's the thing. This is something we can handle. This is something that we can deal with, but it is just going to take a little bit of extra time and a little bit of extra code. And it's one of those where it's not difficult. It can sometimes be a little bit tedious.
I was going to say, it's a bit fiddly.
It can be, fiddly, funky, tricky, you know, but it's not necessarily difficult.
Yeah.
All right. So then how can we start to break things down? Well, one way that we could break things down is to actually just use that day, month, year. But one of the problems with just using the day, month, year properties is that after a little while, that particular bit of code can just get longer and longer and longer. And then, of course, we also have the problem of trying to convert those number types into strings and so forth and so on. So fortunately, just like Susan demoed with our numbers where we have different formatting options, we've got the exact same thing for dates. Awesome. Until we look at the slide.
Yeah. Not exactly intuitive at first glance. You don't look at this and go, well, obviously that's taking a date and formatting it to show day, month, year.
Okay, so yeah, we've got current date.
That part's straightforward, right?
Yep.
That contains the current date. That's our date variable.
strftime, string from time.
Yes, make a string from a date time element is what that's actually short for, but they made it nice and cryptic.
Yep. And then you'll notice that we've got %d and %y. And so those two are pretty straightforward.
Those make sense.
Yeah, the %d is my day, the %y is my year, the %b is my month.
And the reason, just so you know, they aren't just making it %b to make your lives difficult. The reason they had to use %b is because they use m for minutes when you start getting into times. So they always have this problem, but there's minutes and there's months, and they can't use m for both of them.
Yep.
And uppercase, lowercase mean different things. We're actually going to see that. So that's why they had to go with something else. Why they picked B, I have no idea. But they're not doing it to confuse you. Programmers, people who make these languages are not out to get you. So yes, it's a little confusing to getting used to %b. When you forget it, look it up. Just search for help on string format time or how do I format a date output in Python. You will find on the first page of results in Bing something that's going to have a nice example. And actually in the reference document that is in the GitHub, we have a link to the documentation for string ftime, which gives you a link to all the different options.
In fact, if we take a look at my slide here, you'll notice there's the little link. I'm just going to tap on that. Whoops, I'm on a highlighter. All right, give me 1 second here.
Got to convince it to get you out of highlighter mode.
Yeah, get me out of, there we go. There we go. Okay, so right here, there is all of the different options that are available. Again, don't memorize these.
No, we don't memorize it. Look them up when you need them.
There's an old story. Albert Einstein was being interviewed by the New York Times, and the interviewer asked him about some constant, whatever the constant value was, and Einstein said he didn't know what it was. And the reporter was, a little incredulous. How could you not know what this is? And Einstein said, why would I memorize something that I could look up in a book in under 2 minutes? Same concept here. Don't memorize these things. Somebody asked earlier how it is that, we know all of this. Well, the reason that Susan and I know this is because we've done it. Because after a while, you just keep doing it, you're just going to remember it. But sitting down and trying to memorize this, that's not going to be helpful. Because the other thing is, you don't necessarily know how much of this you're going to wind up using on a day-to-day basis. So you decide one day, well, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start memorizing this because this is what's going to make me a real developer, which it's not.
Nope.
And then you're going to wind up memorizing a whole bunch of things that you're not going to actually wind up using.
At least not every single day.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll do it once, and then you'll figure it out, and then you probably won't have to write code like that again for another month.
Exactly. So. Go look it up. Go look it up. But in the meantime, you are going to notice, coming back to my slide here, D for a day, B for a month, and then Y for that 4-digit year. And then again, if you want to break things down a bit further, you're going to notice the full, the abbreviation, the 2-digit, the 4-digit, and again, strftime.org to go get all of them. So that is what that breakdown is all about. Okay, so with that, let's take a look at that in action. All right, discard. Let's go back to Visual Studio. Woohoo! Okay, so now let's go in and let's say print, and what I'm going to do is say current date.strftime.
Yep.
There we go. And I'm going to go with %d. I'm going to go with %b, comma, and %y, just like that.
Yep, that
Cool.
makes sense. Day, month, year.
Yep. And sure enough, if we do it,
Much
there
better.
it is.
All right, high five. I like that. Way better as an output.
And actually, if I was going to, do it my typical way of doing my formatting here, I'll just do it like that. There we go.
You like 2-digit years?
I like the 2-digit years.
That's that's a very popular format too.
Yep. Exactly. And that's it. Is that and you'll notice that if you want a specific format, you can get it. Again, we're not launching rockets here. whatever date output it is that you're trying to put together, unless you're forming your own nation, and maybe you are, but unless you're forming your own nation, somebody else has needed to output dates like that. I guarantee you that there's a code sample, snippet, or otherwise that you can go get, or just go in and kind of play with it, and you'll be able to figure out exactly what it is that you're trying to do with your date formats and your date outputs. Okay, I want. Where is the right slide?
You're looking for the
There it
slide
is.
with a few more examples on it there?
Almost.
Okay.
Okay. So then, kind of taking this one step further, could you print out a sentence like, please attend our event on Sunday, July 20, in the year 1997.
Just to show you that you really can be very specific and in terms of how you display your date. So yes, you do have a lot of formatting options.
Exactly. Now, here's what I want you to notice. I want you to notice that I can't use a keyboard. I want you to notice that we're calling strftime again.
Yep, it's the same function.
Exactly. But you're going to notice, and you might have clued in on this, you might have sort of seen a hint at this earlier when we put in the comma, that we're not restricted to just using those special codes. So if you remember back to Susan's earlier demo, where she was displaying out digits. Well, the thing about displaying a digit is that a digit is still one component. So all that we need was a placeholder for that number to be dropped into. But when we talk about a date has multiple parts. It's got, the day, the month, the year, and everything else to go along with it, the day of the week. And so it's very common for us to need to break it down into individual components and to put string text around it. So if you want to go in and say something like, please attend our event, or put in commas, or whatever else it is that you might want to throw into there, you absolutely have that capability.
Nice.
Okay.
You said print out wedding invitations with Python. Things that business applications of Python. I can start up a business with that.
I love it. Okay.
Okay, I'm just going to touch on this one briefly because I said this did come up earlier in the Q&A. Some people were asking about working with other languages. So now we've got, if I'm in Canada, we are French and English. So if I want to see février instead of February, those sorts of situations are going to come up. That's one of the nice things about the numeric display is you have the advantage that I don't have to worry about whether the month is December or décembre. Yes, you do run into some fun when you start dealing with multiple languages. We're not going to try and cover how you localize that, but we do have a hint for you where to start your Bing searches for examples and so on. There are examples in things like Stack Overflow and blog posts that talk about how do I localize a date, and I think the slide may have a reference
actually,
to it,
if you take a look at the slide, this summarizes basically everything that Susan just said there. But yeah, down there at the very bottom, you'll notice that there's a little project right there that you can go in and check out for going in and kind of dealing with localization.
Yeah, it deals with both currencies and date features, so it's a really useful library if you are dealing with different symbols in different languages.
Exactly, exactly. Oh, and by the way, let me just fire this back up again real quickly here, only because I want to just mention right up here in the top right, you'll notice Fork Me on GitHub. There's a reason that we chose GitHub to share out our code, and it wasn't just simply because, oh, look, we've got someplace to drop our code.
Yeah, we can put it on OneDrive.
Exactly. The reason that we chose GitHub is because you're going to notice when you start getting in and start digging deeper into Python, you start using different libraries like this, or you start using different libraries like strftime, you're going to notice that quite frequently they're open source. Meaning that if you wanted to go in and see exactly how they work behind the scenes, if you decided that maybe you want to get in and contribute, you have that ability. And most open source projects these days are maintained on GitHub. Actually, I shouldn't necessarily say most because I don't actually have the numbers. I don't know if it's most or not. We'll say many, just to be technically accurate there. So many projects, open source projects, are hosted on GitHub, and there's many a Python project that's hosted there as well. So a big part of the reason that we did that was also just to kind of get you a little introduced to GitHub and get you kind of poking around in there. If I can again kind of throw in a real quick shameless plug, I know I did this earlier this morning, but it's worth mentioning one more time that we do have an MVA on Git and Visual Studio. So if you decide that you do want to get a bit more into Git, maybe use this for your own projects, even if you're not necessarily contributing to others, then you can go in and do that.
Yeah. So we're just trying to do best practices ourselves by sharing code the way most people share code. So you start getting familiar with the ways people tend to share code. So when you want to look at someone else's examples, you'll know how to access it.
Exactly. Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to the world of dates.
Back to the world of dates. So now, at the very beginning of all of this, we started out with a basic question. I've got my birthday, I've got today. How do I figure out the number of days until my birthday? Well, fortunately, you're going to notice that there's a lot of different ways that we can start doing calculations based around dates. Now, in order to do this, the first thing that we're going to need is we're going to need to know what your birthday is.
Yeah, we already know how to ask people for a value. We just use our input function.
Now, pop quiz, what's the problem with input when it comes to data types?
Input always returns a string. We ran into this when we were talking about number variables earlier.
Yes. So we need to convert that into a date.
Right, because we want to be able to use those cool date functions to do some logic and some calculations.
Exactly. And this is where strftime comes in to allow you to do that conversion.
Not to be mixed up with string ftime for formatting dates for display.
Exactly. Now, what I want you to notice here, and let me fire up my highlighter, it's going to be the easiest way to show it, is you'll notice that it's off of datetime, datetime. Now, first of all, why is it twice? Because that datetime class is inside of the datetime module that we're using. So it's a little clunky, but that's why that's there. We've got that strptime, so that's how we're going to pull in our time. And you're going to notice this takes two parameters, two values. Number one is the input from the user. Number two is the format that we are expecting. Now, let's do two demos here. Let's start here. So let me open up Visual Studio. Whoops. How about I open Visual Studio? There's Visual Studio. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this. Oh, you know what I am going to do? Watch this. I want to comment all of those out. A lot of people have been asking about multi-line comments, and you really can't do multi-line comments in Python. You can sort of do a very hacky solution, which I really don't like. On top of that, I personally don't like having a multi-line comment, because one of the challenges with a multi-line comment is you cannot nest one inside of another. Well, what happens if I've got a full block of code and I want to comment all of that out? Well, you're going to notice if I click on Advanced and Edit, that right here I've got comment selection. And you'll also notice, let me zoom in here, that there's a shortcut keystroke there. Control-K, Control-C. And you do need to hit Control for both of those.
Yeah, you actually hold the keyboard down and go Control-K-C.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And then if you want to uncomment, it's Control-K, Control-U. So Control-K, Control-C, comment, Control-K, Control-U, uncomment.
And that is a really handy little keyboard shortcut that will definitely help you a little faster when you've got a lot of code and you're trying out different things.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So let's do this. I'm just going to kick back real quick here to the slide. You're going to notice month, day, year. So that's what we've decided. That's where we're going to go with month, day, year. So let's go ahead and come back over here. And I'm going to say that I'm going to declare my input, user input equals input. Please enter your birthday. And let's go ahead and say birthday equals datetime, str p-time.
Somebody suggested that you could remember it as F is like format and P is put.
Okay,
P is to put the time, the date time in here. I thought that was not a bad way of trying to remember it.
No, I don't go with that.
I don't know what it's supposed to stand for, but put works.
Yeah, put works just fine. All right, so we'll go month. We will go %d day. We will go %y for our year, and that should give us our birth date. And let's just go ahead and print that out. We'll just do a very simple print and birthday. Excellent.
That looks good.
Okay, we'll hit start. Please enter my birthday, and I'm going to go with 5, 8, and we'll go with 2014. So we'll put in this year's birthday and hit enter, and sure enough, it works.
You have successfully taken a string and converted it into a date.
Awesome.